stream. It's good to have the president of Lawyer.com, Colleen, with us.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
So good, so good. And Gary, it's good to see
Pleasure
you
to be
again.
here. Thank you, Chad. Thank you.
And so Colleen, one of the things Gary and I were talking about earlier today, and we wanted to talk about this on our live stream today, and that is this. Why is it that law firms are so resistant to training? Now, when I say that, Colleen, I promise you, there are law firms that are listening right now that'll be like, I'm not resistant to training. I'm open to training. I don't resist it at all. But yet, Gary and we were talking about how it seems like law firms, they know they need to market.
Sure.
They'll come to us at Lawyer.com and they're like, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads, right? They get all that. But then they don't spend the time training their staff and people that are talking to those potential leads like they should. Why do you think that is, Colleen, from where you're sitting? And then Gary, I'd love your feedback.
Well, if I'm putting myself in the lawyer's position, I think it's hard to change. I think change takes a lot of work. And when you come in and your day's already hard enough and chaotic enough, now you're coming and you're like, oh, hey, you need to change this whole thing. I'm like, oh, that's like, where am I going to find the time, the effort to do all that? I get that it's going to be better, but I don't know how to get from where I am now to the change being successful. And that I don't think I'm alone in that thought.
No, but you said something there, Colleen. You said that that they don't have the time to train,
Yeah.
right? That they feel like they have so much going on, they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But Gary, do you agree with that, or what's your take?
Yeah, I think it's just like most things. It doesn't really come down to just one thing. But Colleen makes a good point, and that if you are evaluating your day and the most effective use of your time, typically you're focused on those billable activities.
Sure.
So I think that can come into play. Change obviously is one, and then I think sometimes not knowing how to or where to begin comes
Sure.
into play, right? I mean, listen, every organization has areas that could stand to improve, and if we stop looking for those, right, we're going to fall behind. So that's every organization, but probably trying to identify the most effective use of time and where the training should be allocated probably comes into play as well.
Well, and I was talking to one of our potential coaching clients, a Lawyer.com client, and they said that one of the things that causes them, anxiety when it comes around training is because it feels like it's more work for them.
Sure.
And so they go to they try to absorb some new strategies, new things that need to be taught to their team, and then they go, I don't want to teach them to my team. So then what do you say to someone? So the two of you, the two things that I got from both Colleen and from Gary, what you're saying is they don't have time and they don't really know how.
Right.
They don't have the time and they don't know the how. So what do you do? What do you say to someone like that? Because the reality is there is nothing that will propel your firm to greater success than having the right training and the right systems in place for it. Right. So what do you say to them?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of baby steps, because just the idea of training somebody right now is just so daunting with the workload I have. But if I knew and I had a plan and I knew that they could be in little steps, I feel like I'd have a little bit more control. I may like control or may not, but it's easier for me to manage it, right? Maybe not.
That's okay. So Colleen's the president of Lawyer.com, right? So everything, the buck for all intents and purposes stops with Colleen. And she made a joke there that she said that I may or may not like control. But I want to double click on that for just a second. And the reality is Colleen just likes the outcome.
Yes.
She just likes the outcome. And so Colleen wants, because she gives her team great flexibility and great freedom, but she likes to have certain outcomes. right? And so when you say you like to control, you like to make sure that the outcome is
Yes.
where it should be.
Sounds
And
so much better coming from Chad.
no, but it's like
That's
you
true.
don't like you're just like make sure that we deliver these outcomes.
Exactly. So
And
that's why if I could take it into baby steps, then it's a less daunting task.
huge,
Yeah.
huge, because it's like, okay, we're going to start with this
Right.
one piece. We're going to start with clarity. We're going to start with, making sure that everyone knows, well, even going back to making sure we all understand the outcome. And so Colleen says baby steps to help overcome that. And by the way, there's a great book that everyone should read, called The Gap in the Game by an amazing author. Dan Sullivan. I knew it was
There
right
you go. There you go.
And that he talks about how that everyone focuses so much on what they have left to do, and you
Mhm.
don't focus as much on the gain and where you've come. And so I know we all fall into that trap. And I know you too, as president of Lawyer.com, Colleen, you've got all these goals and ambitions, and you want to help so many law firms, and we
Sure.
want to grow and impact and have that huge impact. And sometimes you have to turn around and look and be like, whoa, we've come a long way. So those baby steps help us see that,
Absolutely.
we are making progress. But Gary, what would you say? Colleen says baby steps to overcome that challenge of time and what to do. What would you say?
I what I can share is that I was trying to put myself in the law firm owner's seat, and I can't help but think of sometimes thinking that taking a step back to improve upon what's already been done kind of feels like a step forward. I mean, a step backwards rather than a step forward. Like oftentimes when you're building and creating things, you think of them as building blocks. And once you've completed one, you want to move on to the next. So, but as we know, in order to stay current and to grow, we have to be moving forward, because if we stay stagnant, we're going to fall backwards. So I think having that mindset is really important, that if we're not continuing to improve upon what we're already doing, we're going backwards.
Oh, and that's huge. When we do our business builder events, and so at Lawyer.com, we're committed to your success, and what fuels Colleen as the leader is making sure we're helping law firms be successful. That's what we're passionate about. That's what we do. And we have these business builder events where we gather attorneys together and say, okay, here's some specific strategies that you can immediately apply to grow your firm. And Gary brought up something I just want to make sure that everyone heard, and that is that you are either the average law firm growth. We talked about this when we were in Las Vegas, the Lawyer.com team. The average law firm grew last year at 8%. 8%. And by the way, I believe inflation last year was 9%. So that's the average growth of the law firm, right? The high growth firms grew at 34%. And this was the statistic that was really powerful from the Lawyer.com team last week, was that zero growth firms, well, there's actually no such thing as zero growth firms. The zero growth firms were actually what? Do you guys remember? -6%.
Yeah.
And so there is no growth. And so to your point, Colleen says we need to take baby steps so that we apply training.
Yep.
And then Gary, you're saying that we also need to make sure that we have to either be moving forward or backwards. There is no middle ground. And so, and maybe I'll just share, this will be my parting thought, and you guys can all share your parting thoughts. But we want, one of my good friends bought a Ferrari. He spent several $100,000 and he bought this Ferrari, and he goes, hey, do you want to go drive in it? take a drive? And I'm like, yeah. So I go to get in the passenger seat. And he goes, no, bro, you're driving. And so I'm like, man, you spent 400 grand on this car. I'd rather not wreck it, you know? So we get in the car and we start driving. Well, I got to the point where I was, okay, it was all fun and everything, but I'd rather you drive. So I stopped the car and then I said, I need to put it in park. And he goes, oh man, it doesn't have park. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, it just find a flat spot. I'm like, bro, you spent hundreds of $1,000s of a car and I can't even put it in park. He goes, no. Once you turn the car off, it will stop. But yeah, there's no way to really park it. I'm like, and so I get out of the car, I find a flat spot and I get out of the car hoping that it doesn't roll or anything. And he gets back in. And I thought about that though, Gary, to your point that you just shared, is that when we want to be a high growth firm, when we want to have a Ferrari of a firm, there is no park. You are either rolling forward or backwards. And so as we talk about training and making sure that we are applying training to our firm, we have to remember that we're either going to take those baby steps that Colleen talks about forward, or we're going backwards. So that's my parting thought. Colleen, Gary, do you have anything else you want to add?
I can't top a Ferrari, so I mean that was perfect. So I'm good on that one.
So I think as good as that was, Chad, I think that if we don't see, I'm not afraid to comment on that, but I think that to think of change doesn't always have to be a monumental movement, right? I mean, a lot of times they're just small little tweaks. And so I think if you go into something with that mindset, that listen, not everything is major surgery. I mean, we just talked last week at the event about some very simple changes that had dramatic impacts. One where market share went up 300%. Another where by changing small tweaks in what was already done, increased the conversion rate by 100%. So not revisiting things and making changes doesn't always have to be an arduous task. So maybe look for the easy wins. Would be light lifting would probably serve everybody well.
Well, and I think that goes back to what Colleen said with baby steps, just taking those small baby steps. So that's the challenge from the Lawyer.com team, that focus on that training and where you can add training to your firm so you can experience that growth we're all looking for. So always great to be with you, Colleen and Gary.
See you next Tuesday, guys.
All right, we'll see you.